Representative House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 865. I'll ask you to indulge me for a minute here as I point out some similarities between this bill and a bill or a set of bills that just recently passed through this chamber on a fast track. This legislation that I speak of, Mr. Speaker, has been dubbed as the right to work legislation.
Representative, I'm going to ask that you keep your comments to this bill itself. Speaker recognizes Representative House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reason why, in all due respect to your request, I will keep my comments to this bill, but the similarity that I do want to point out is that of collective bargaining, because that is a highlighted issue within the original Public Act 4, which was repealed by 2.3 million Michigan voters on November 6. In the city of Detroit, we saw collective bargaining at its best. When did we see this? In February of 2012, the city of Detroit had an opportunity to control its own destiny. So today I stand here in support of those 33 labor unions that represent the men and women who serve as employees of the city of Detroit. When they came together with the city's mayor and agreed on certain concessions that would allow us to correct the financial downfall that has beheaded the city of Detroit. But what happened instead? We had this body, we had the governor of this state that said it wasn't good enough and trampled over those collective bargaining agreements, which never made it to the council table for ratification. And so, Mr. Speaker, my point here today is simply that we had many opportunities to be able to correct what's happening in the city of Detroit. Emergency management, emergency financial management is not the answer. And the reason why it's not the answer is because you do not allow the democratic process to take place. In many cases, when asked why would we present legislation that does nothing more but warm over a law that has already been repealed, the answer is, well, the voters voted it down. Public Act 4 was repealed. So to me, this is nothing more than retaliation. What does the city of Detroit need instead of emergency management? The city of Detroit needs its economy to be revived. If you think about it, the economy is the main concern for Detroiters today. In September, Detroit's unemployment rating was 18.1%. That's nearly 1 out of 5 Detroiters are without a job. When this administration first took office in January of 2011, and we sat in these seats and listened to the State of the State address, it was stated that the number one job or jobs is number one. Well, we have not seen a jobs plan in the city of Detroit or for the city of Detroit. So unemployment remains Detroit's highest economic hurdle and continues to cloud residents' view of Detroit's future. The governor and the treasurer of this state have turned away from the call for immediate jobs and has pushed for a strategy of economic austerity, choking Detroit's economy. We should be focused on bringing real accountability to city government, building safer, stronger neighborhoods, and lowering unemployment by expanding economic access and opportunity for residents and businesses alike. Mr. Speaker, when I think about what's really at play here, when you have a government, a state government, that is forcing its will on local municipalities instead of partnering, truly partnering with those local municipalities. What you have here reminds me of legislation that was passed on a federal level that made it possible for women and children to receive support in the form of aid. The only way those women were able to receive that support for those children that they bore was to remove the man from the household. What has this done years later? It has weakened the family structure in many households that are headed by women in the city of Detroit. How does that compare to this legislation? This legislation removes the leadership in the form of our elected officials who were elected by the people of the city of Detroit. When you do that, you weaken the spirit of those residents within the city of Detroit. And you begin to go after assets. This should not be the intent of this legislation. And so I portend on today that we had an opportunity 18 months ago, really longer than that, 23 months ago, to get all the stakeholders in the room at the same time and do what's best for our local communities. And that is not to starve us of revenue sharing, not to hold bond proceeds over our heads because we don't agree to sign certain contracts. In many ways, this reminds me of the federal case that's being held against our former mayor in the city of Detroit, where people who were involved with contracts were accused of, or allegedly accused of, forcing to have kickbacks given to them in association with those contracts, Mr. Speaker. So I'm asking, what is different here? We have to come together under a different spirit in order to truly move our city forward. Bankruptcy is not the answer, and emergency management is not the answer in the city of Detroit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative.